When I wrote my book, Evangelicals at the Crossroads, I put in an entire chapter called What Would Bonhoeffer Do? Because in this chapter, I analyze a major statement from the International Bonhoeffer Society, Bonhoeffer scholars, who say that looking at the rise of Donald Trump, it has frightening parallels to the rise of Adolf Hitler, and a responsible thing for Christians is to see that Donald Trump is removed from being president. That was the call. So I look at their statement, analyze the strengths of it, and then I analyze the weaknesses of it and explain fundamentally why they have really missed the point here. I don't know what Bonhoeffer would do. I'm not a Bonhoeffer scholar. Even if I was, he's not alive here, and it's a different world and situation in which we're living. But either way, that was disturbing enough, but it's still scholars, and it's a statement online. We'll look at their statement in a moment. But things like this concern me more. Listen to this. This is on Morning Joe Scarborough with Donnie Deutsch. Listen to this.
Faces without wearing masks and putting the lives of themselves and their loved ones in danger. Here we are 6 months later. Donald Trump still hasn't learned a thing.
Look at that crowd. You know, before I get to COVID, what stunned me is, and Alex, if we show some of the kind of the actual live shots of the crowd, there's not one person of color anywhere. Like usually behind him, he puts one kind of token in there, a token per. If you scan this crowd, this is stunning. It is, if you go not even behind him, but through the thousands and thousands of people. And this to me looked like a rally from the early 30s. You know, Joe, I was watching the first hour, and as Jay Johnson was talking about comparing to Hitler, and, you know, that's something you cautiously do because we can use the word fascist, but then when you go Hitler, you can't, everybody starts to go. But what was going on in early 30s Germany? Well, basically you had a destruction of the belief in the free press. You had a blurring between the executive branch and the Justice Department. You have creating an other, whether it's Muslims, whether it's Mexicans, whether it's congressmen who weren't born in this country. And then you have the destruction of free elections. And we're here. And what is the difference between Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump? I'm not saying there's a Holocaust, but when you look at the tactics, and that is where we are right now.
Shame on Donnie Deutsch for those ridiculous and ignorant comments to compare Donald Trump to a mass murdering, evil, wicked, demonized man, Adolf Hitler, and to even compare Christian support of him for Christian support of Hitler, support of Trump to Hitler. As for the crowd, by the way, the area happened to be 93% white, less than 4% black, and there were others in the crowd there, by the way. But let's dig deeper. Let's unpack this together. Let's be blunt here, friends. With all of Donald Trump's failings and shortcomings, let's be blunt. He is not sending people to concentration camps by the millions. He is not seeking to exterminate Jews and gypsies and others. He is not exterminating the elderly. He is, to make the comparisons, it's beyond rhetoric. It's immoral. It's irresponsible to do such. And I understand people in the media on all sides make all kinds of outrageous statements, but we're going to call them out. We're going to address them. It is righteous to do so. So let's look at the argument from the Bonhoeffer Society. Okay, let's look at what they said in terms of their arguments against Trump. And I'm going to dig down a few paragraphs, begin reading here. A hallmark of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's legacy is his insistence that we see the great events of world history from the view from below. That is, he urges us to see from the perspective of those who suffer. The policies of the Trump administration both threaten and disempower the most vulnerable members of our society, including people of color, members of the LGBTQ communities, Muslims and other religious minorities, immigrants, refugees, the poor, the marginally employed, and the unemployed. Moreover, Donald Trump has now taken ill-advised military action that raises the specter of war. One of the greatest lessons learned from the history of the Christian churches during Germany's Third Reich is that it is crucial to respond to threats to human life, integrity, and community when they first appear, and to continue to challenge them. As Bonhoeffer scholars, religious leaders, and confessing Christians, we have a special responsibility to name crises and discern responsible actions of resistance and healing. We confess our own complicity in the social order that has produced Donald Trump's presidency. For many of the social and economic justices we confront predate it. Then it says, we believe, scrolling down, that one crucial step in this reckoning is ending Donald Trump's presidency. We do not make this statement lightly, and they go on from there. Okay, so I get into that in Evangelicals at the Crossroads. I analyze it. I interact with it. Yes, Trump has made many statements that have marginalized different people and many statements that have been insensitive and have been lacking in nuance, because of which he's been accused of being anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-Black, anti-Hispanic, on and on it goes. I understand that, fully understand that. When you go through things and actually look at policies, the policies are aimed at the betterment of all Americans. That's why there's actually rising support in the African-American community for Donald Trump, according to polls that have been taken over the course of the year, in recent years. I don't know exactly where they stand with the race issues going on. But if you look at the Republican National Convention, it was black voice after black voice. Oh, those are just token. Oh, so we're on the Democrat side, they're not token. On the Republican side, they are. Having a black surgeon general or black cabinet member, those are just token. When Trump meets with hundreds of black leaders, young black leaders in the White House to interact, that's just token. When he calls in black pastors, leading black pastors and Hispanic pastors to sit and talk about race issues in America, that's just token. When he calls for special summits and gatherings featuring black leaders to interact and to get insight and wisdom, that's just token. So whatever he does is just going to be branded token. By the way, as for a rally, people wearing masks or not, there's constant debate that keeps going on. I wear a mask because I'm required to. I don't think I need to, okay? I don't think it's helping me necessarily. I wear it in the stores. I wear it in the airport, on the plane, because I'm required to. When I'm preaching in the church, I'm not wearing it. When I'm attending the service, I'm not wearing it, all right? Everyone's got to sort that out. But we'll put that aside. Put the mask debate aside. I don't want to be distracted with that. Let me share some of the things that I shared in Evangelicals at the Crossroads. So I'm just going to read some of this to you. We don't have the text to put up for those who are watching, but let me read some of this to you, okay? Remember first that when President Trump pulled our troops out of Syria, he's not the one provoking war around the world. He's trying to pull our troops out, get our troops out of Afghanistan, pull their troops out of Syria. There was an outcry from Christian leaders. Pat Robertson, Robert Jeffress, David Brody, Franklin Graham, different ones spoke openly, and there were warnings, there were concerns about doing this, and don't abandon the Kurds. In other words, this is not just blind following, okay? So I want you to consider this, all right? Let's just see when this took place. Eric Metaxas notes, shortly after Germany voted to leave the League of Nations in November 1933, the Nazis held a large rally for the German Christians, meaning the pro-Nazi Christians, with 20,000 in attendance. This is 1933. This is early on. There, a high school teacher named Reinhard Krauss, who was the leader of the German Christians, this is the pro-Nazi Christians, addressed the exultant crowd. In coarse, crude language, Eric Metaxas writes, Krauss demanded that the German church must once and for all divest itself of every hint of Jewishness. The Old Testament would be first, quote, with its Jewish money morality and its tales of cattle merchants and pimps. The stenographical record notes that sustained applause ensued. The New Testament must be revised too and must present to Jesus corresponding entirely with the demands of National Socialism, and it must no longer present an exaggerated emphasis on the crucified Christ. This tenet was defeatist and depressing, which was to say Jewish Germany it was Jewish. Germany needed hope and victory. Krauss also mocked the theology of the Rabbi Paul with its scapegoats and inferiority complex, and then he mocked the symbol of the cross, quote, a ridiculous, debilitating remnant of Judaism unacceptable to National Socialists. Furthermore, he demanded that every German pastor must take an oath of personal allegiance to Hitler, and the Aryan paragraph that demanded the expulsion of every church member of Jewish descent must be heartily accepted by every German church. This is 1933. This is how open things were. This is a decade before the full horrors of the Holocaust are unfolding, or almost a decade. So to make it like, well, Trump's like it, no, it's immoral. Immoral to say such a thing. And think of, say, Trump's posture towards Jews, right, with his own family, Jewish members, Ivanka and Jared and their children, and then being the best friend Israel's had in years. and moving the embassy to Jerusalem and brokering this important peace treaty that brings more security to the Jewish people in the land. You're going to compare him to Hitler? They say, no, it's not so much treatment of Jews, treatment of blacks. Okay, so picture this. Picture as Hitler is already fully in power, that a group of rabbis and Jewish leaders are all surrounding him in prayer, standing there with their hands on his shoulders, and that picture is released publicly. Right, sure. That's not going to happen in 1 trillion years. But you have black leaders gathering to meet with the president, Christian leaders laying their hands on him, praying over him. And he's asked them, and look, I know people very close to the president. I have no connection to the president, okay? But I know people who are close to him, all right? I have a friend that can call him on his personal cell. And every person I know that's anywhere near close to the president says that he actually cares about bettering life for Americans. And when he became more educated about things happening in inner city inequality, he wanted to do his best to lift up those in the inner city and to lift up those in the African-American community that any way that he could, not just with employment, but standing with the colleges, prison reform, things like this, the negative things that have affected the black community more than others. He wanted to fix that. You're going to compare that to Hitler? Well, he's just taking over. How was he taking over? There was an impeachment process, okay? And it was decided by a vote that he was not going to be put out of office. But I go on. Let me read a few more things out of Evangelicals at the Crossroads here. Oh, let's see. 1938, after Hitler annexed Austria in a brazen act of military expansionism, some so-called Christian leaders were giddy with excitement, making fresh commitments to the Fuhrer. As Metaxas notes, Bishop Zasa of Thuringia was first in line, aching to say thank you to his Fuhrer, and doing so by demanding that all of the pastors under him take a personal oath of loyalty to Hitler. His telegram to Hitler has been preserved. My Fuhrer, I report in a great historic hour all the pastors of the Thuringian Evangelical Church, obeying an inner command, have with joyful hearts taken an oath of loyalty to Fuhrer and Reich, one God, one obedience in the faith. Hail, my Fuhrer. And it goes on and on. And then other pastors were called on to make oaths to Hitler. Can you imagine? You think of all the evangelicals who have supported Trump and all the conservative Christians who have supported Trump from different backgrounds. You think that if they were told you must now make an oath of loyalty to Donald Trump, that part of your confession of faith in your church, you must make an oath of loyalty to Donald Trump. Do you think there is one chance in a million that these leaders would say, okay, well, now introduce that in our church? Oh, you might have some extremists out there. I'm sure you have some extremists out there that in the days of President Obama, if you had to add an oath of loyalty to him, you'd have some extremists on the other side. You have extremists all over the place. But the idea that here, when he made his decision to pull troops from Syria, that leaders were so quick to speak out and challenge him. You think if he changed his views on abortion, these leaders would say, well, he's our man. He's our leader. We bow down to him. Are you kidding me? Seriously? So let's wake up to reality. Let's get away from this dangerous rhetoric, folks. It's destructive. It's destructive. Yes, I'll say it again. Trump's rhetoric is often divisive and often destructive in other ways, and insulting and demeaning to people. And then many of us, followers of Jesus, think, well, if he's doing it, we can do it because he's a fighter. We're going to fight. And we get just as nasty and crude. That's despicable. That's inexcusable. And for Christian leaders to think, well, if Trump conducts himself like this, then I can, that is absolute folly and terrible immaturity. On the flip side, when someone on the left is going to go this far with an extreme and ugly statement and just say, yeah, Trump like Hitler, that's where we are now. That's ignorant, that's dangerous, and it must be called out. I'm going to speak the truth regardless of where the chips fall.